How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? None. It's a hardware problem. Hey, howdy ho. Daniel Markham here with a Nerd Roundup. Every Friday we do an hour where we talk about tech news of the week. We try to have fun, and we look at what's going on from kind of a nerdy outlook. Today we have James Greening and John Kern. Hey guys, greetings. There's no money back on the jokes. I'm sorry. It's
Yeah, that was a good one, Dan.
It's an as is. Yeah, my grandpa told me that one. That was a pretty
much. The classic.
So, what have you guys been up to this week?
Well, I had a group of embedded engineers in Berlin. I was teaching test-driven development to, or helping them experience it. They were totally against it on Monday, and they're kind of for it now by Thursday, so it's a win. Or they're at least not, they haven't abandoned it yet. Let me just say that.
Yeah, and one new group that we started working with are data scientists and data engineers, kind of basic machine learning things to try to help improve patient outcomes and things like that. And there was some pushback about, well, John, but you're an expert in software, but what we do isn't software. We're different.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. See how that goes.
You know, everybody likes to be special.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you know.
What's the old saying? I want to be different just like everybody else.
Everybody's kind of normal till you get to know them.
So
the good thing is they're a good group, eager to learn, but I think just starting to push them, make them a little more uncomfortable. Some of those sorts of defense mechanisms come out in some sense. So it's
that sounds good, John. One of the key takeaways from my class, I hope, when there's summary at the end, I do with the people, it's like, I'm hoping by now you're afraid to write code without tests. Because they're working on all my toy problems and they can't, they get them to work, but they struggle. And eventually it works. It's like, I hope you're starting to be afraid of not having tests. So.
Yeah, that's important. So I think, what I've been learning is if you're too far out beyond their comfort level, then it won't it won't work.
Right.
But if you're just slightly on what we call our developmental edge, if you're slightly, and we do surveys of the attendees, so we have a good upfront view of their kind of their adult developmental psychology, where they stand and their motivational orientation, autonomy versus command and control. So we have a good feel for what's the makeup of the audience. I mean, you can't be reduced to a number per se, or a phrase or some word, but it is helpful. It often correlates to how they really are, and then you can use that just to push them a little bit, to their uncomfort level, and that's where the learning starts. Or at least it's more effective. That's interesting.
About 20 years ago, I did a universal coaching metric for software development. And it was just a series of questions, and it made a grid, and it was very much what you're talking about. Where are you motivated? Where's the pain?
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. If it doesn't hurt, there's no motivation to do something.
That's it, right? Sometimes they would tell you they had big problems that they didn't care about fixing. So, okay.
It's okay. All right. Yep. If you want to fix it, that's, then if you don't, okay, fine.
But I think what was interesting about that situation was they would usually identify one thing they wanted to fix, but then in the problems they didn't care about was usually the root of the thing that they were complaining about. It's like, yeah, the thing you didn't want to fix, that's actually the thing that's causing the problems over here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, back in the old days,
I think we're required to say back in the old days at least 4 times for each Nerd Roundup.
Back in the old days, like 1999.
Ooh.
And we're trying to help a company learn about extreme programming. We would ask them, what problems would you like to solve? And I find it kind of surprising. I listen to all these Agile people. No one's really interested in what problems Agile's trying to solve. Everybody's interested in doing Agile. They don't know why.
Good point.
So,
yeah, good luck. You bring up the
Yeah.
A word, everybody's, it's all over the place. It's,
I'm an engineer, so it's like, what problem are we trying to solve? It's
Yeah,
like one of
exactly.
the fundamental questions.
so this,
Dan, what have you been doing this week?
oh yeah, I kind of fell into an essay. I think John may have seen it, not sure. This is an essay about communication technology. And, I'm working on my third book, and that's really what I should be doing. But every now and then I kind of fall into something. It's like, oh, hell, I got to do this. I got no choice. And it occurred to me that there's this wonderful parallel between the Spanish coming to the New World and showing reading and writing to the natives and where we are with social media and all the technology. So I wrote this sort of extended kind of rhyming essay on, okay, this happened in the history, this is happening now, this happened in history. Fun stuff.
I have to check that out.
Yeah, it's
Always learn something from your writing, Dan.
I tell my wife I'm studying for Jeopardy. I just haven't got on the show yet. At some point, I'm getting on. I'm kicking some serious booty when I get on, but it's not yet. So this first article is growing object-oriented software versus what I would do. It's this David person read a book, reviewed it, and he just kind of trashed it. I think, yeah. So I enjoyed this, and I don't want to spoil too much of it for folks, but basically we have two articles by this David person, and in both of them he goes forth and tries to read a book on OO programming. And both of them, I think he kind of misses the point and then just rants and trashes on. It's so typical of what we do, all of us. We just sort of assume that we're sort of farther than we are. And so he posted on Lobsters, and everybody kind of had a big Donnybrook over that. And he did the they said, oh, you should read the second book. So he read this 99 Bottles of Oop book, which I'd never heard of. Trashed it as well. And yeah, there was it's the OO versus functional guys. It's never ending fun. It's more fun than these tabs versus spaces guys. So if you get a chance to read his argument, the thing I find out about a lot of these sort of coding rants is that the people who are doing the rant don't understand the thing they're ranting about. So to me, I'm interested in learning why they didn't learn, if that makes any sense to you. It's like, what the hell? What was the miss here? Why did you think you knew this and you didn't?
So you think that the illustrious writer is confused about what object-oriented programming is, or?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I got OO from a sort of a kind of viewpoint, but then I really learned that it was useful for large-scale programming, organizing your thoughts, doing analysis. I mean, it's all this other stuff. If you didn't have that experience, you're just coming in, somebody says, well, you need to make a customer object. They need to make an interface. You're logically going to ask, but why? And so
I like the little Ruby program for 99 bottles of beer. That's what I looked at that. It was, they have the special cases there. And then then you get the special cases out of the way, and then the generality works.
Yeah, I was looking at it going, dry, oh my God, stop. It's too much.
Well,
But it's funny that as a functional guy, I'm not the big dry guy I used to be. I will do it 2 or 3 times until I really know it's a pattern, and then I'll pull it out. But I wouldn't do the same thing in object code. I don't know why. I think with object code, you're sort of rearranging your understanding of the problem. So dry means, hey, wait a minute, I may be doing the same thing twice. I need to know that I'm doing the same thing twice. Whereas functional comes out the end, works, or doesn't come out the end, and the functions, the symbols in between really shouldn't matter too much.
And dry is kind of a funny thing that people misunderstand. They think it's code duplication, which is only a symptom of not being dry. So you can have, if code duplication is a problem, you might oversolve that problem. And pragmatic programmers talk about it being idea duplication. And so you want to represent an idea once. which I think in this, some of the stuff that we've looked at, your articles, Dan, it's like that idea. And that's, but people look at dry and think code duplication. And, it says it in the rules of simple design and stuff, no duplication. What does that mean? What duplication? Because there's going to be some.
Yeah,
okay.
We're saying
And,
we're in
which is
violent
the harmful
agreement.
part, which is, if you go too far, you end up with a function with 14,000 parameters on it, and it says do it. If you can't name it, you went too far.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think we're in violent agreement here. And I'm trying to name the concepts I'm manipulating so I can bookmark them and remember them later. If I'm duplicating stuff, then I've got the same concept, and it's going to be a lot harder to keep it straight.
Yeah. Were you arguing with me again?
What's that?
Were you arguing with me again, Dan?
Violently in agreement. Yeah, dang it.
Okay. Yeah.
You're right again,
even
James.
tell.
Yeah, I guess I also, I don't know if this is right or wrong per se, but I treat the domain model very differently than all the other code. In terms of, because there I think the don't repeat yourself is especially, maybe I think of it as more egregious and more, I think of it being a little more damaging if what you're trying to describe as the problem is screwed up. That's just going to, ripple through,
I agree.
The actual, that will really get in the way.
Yeah.
And all the boilerplate code and everything else, there you just want to be as consistent as hell because it's just boilerplate. Like
yes.
So I kind of think of it as the problem domain is the king because that's usually the slowest moving part of the system versus, you might change the UI over time. You might change,
and over and over and over.
Yeah, right, exactly. As new technologies come along, let's jump to this. Let's get, but the business typically is pretty, slow moving per se for most businesses. So yeah, I sort of really kind of have two views when I'm looking at code. The boilerplate crap I'd rather be consistently mediocre than random, some really awesomeness and then some really crappiness when in reality, it should have just been consistent as hell. So anyway, yeah.
I think that this kind of gets us, I'm going to skip an article here. The fourth one we have is a guy wrote a thing on framework patterns. And he goes and does a whole bunch of definitions of various patterns, subclassing, dependency injection, straight offs. It's okay. I admit I didn't read all of it. I scanned the first few and watched the discussion around it. But one of the first things that came up was what's the difference between a framework and a library? And to your point, if somebody else is writing the rules to work with whatever, well, whether or not I'm repeating myself with those guys is really more of it's the framework's problem, not mine, right?
You might encapsulate your use of the framework.
Yeah, that gets interesting because you figure if you're used, and I've done some Win32 programming and C++ stuff, and a lot of times, to John's point, you're calling a framework and you're given a pattern that you're supposed to execute inside the function that calls the framework, right? And if you follow that pattern, then anybody else coming into your method sees that same pattern. Oh, okay, well, they're getting a handle first and doing this, whatever. And so that actually is easier to maintain than if you were like factor it all out. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah. Kind of depends on if you care about your dependency on Win32, for example. So if you're building something that you'd like to run on Linux and Win32, then you need to invent your own concurrency mechanism that's portable between the two, or whatever it might be.
I usually always factor it all out, but I can see, OO example that you would not, sometimes you would want to follow best. They always call it idiomatic or best practices. Idiomatic is the thing they use now. It's like, oh, that's just not idiomatic. And that's like you start saying idiot and you stop and you say matic. It's like, okay, I understand this. I got it.
Hey, John, those mountains are not getting any further away as you're walking.
No, that's how big they are. It's you just can't. It's like when you see a C5, galaxy,
Okay.
right?
Well, what about that tree then?
But
Could you work on the background for next time where as you're walking, you get somewhere?
right.
It's like you're on a treadmill or something.
You guys ever
Yes.
watch Whose Line Is Anyway, where they do the reporter and then they control the green screen, but he can't see what he's reporting on?
Oh, that would be funny.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a whole bunch of code examples in this framework versus library discussion. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? I always thought a library just kind of had little bits and pieces to help you get where you're going, whereas a framework knew where you were going and was just, we will call you and you will do what we tell you to do.
I'm thinking in a sense, there's a dependency aspect to it, which if I'm using a library, that's kind of like the leaf node of the dependency, at least from my perspective, where in the framework, there's your dependency has dependencies. So I especially object when a framework makes you, and well, actually when people put their business object and inherit this framework object on top of it, and now the only way you could run that code is in their framework.
Yes.
And so people become let their code become highly dependent on it because, well, that's what all the examples show. Is that the simple examples show you if you're doing an Android program, you inherit from activity, and here's how you can access all the stuff in Android. When they don't actually realize, we should keep our business rules separate from Android.
You plug in one class gives you everything.
I'm an expert at Android now because I did one application for my own fun, which was a pool scoring for the game of straight pool. And I wanted to see what it would look like, so I have the rules of, what if you scratch on the break? What if you scratch 3 times in a row? All the rules about straight pool, which you probably don't know, but I do, or at least I used to know. And, so that would be separate and testable. And then all the stuff that's about wiring into Android is, about Android. It's not about the domain. So the thing that has a long life, John, is the rules about the game of pool and not the way Android does something today.
Don't you love it when you hit that dot with IntelliSense and you get like 1,000 methods? It's like, print red, print blue, do this. It's like, what the hell? Like I fell into a phone book at some point here. What am I doing?
One of your articles, Dan, the guy said, I'm thinking an object should only have 5 methods. And then right away I was thinking about that, like imagine, a Java object out of the Java library and, the thousands of methods it has.
Well,
I was just going to say again, I sort of distinguish between caring more deeply about a problem domain class than weird plumbing.
Yeah.
It's just bullshit. Like, how do I do MVC? In this framework, how do I get something from the user, and so I can remember it tomorrow?
So like in Rails,
Yeah.
So in Rails, the model objects have, 187 methods, right, or some crazy thing. I know every time I try to get it to complete, it says.
Yeah, which is why.
You really want 187 things here?
Yeah. So the secret pro tip. I mean, I started using Rails and saw the active record type approach, where it goes against my. I'd rather just plug in persistence than inherit.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So I use, Mongo instead, and now it's more like my old C++ days where when I use an OO database, just my classes were persistent very simply. I actually built a framework that looks a lot like Rails, or architected it way back in '95, and literally there was the problem domain class that was pretty standalone, and if it needed to persist, you could plug in persistence. So if you use the more of the Mongo type, Mongoid or earlier Mongo mapper approach in Rails, now your class, it doesn't do that. It's just your methods.
So I remember you mentioning that you were going to Mongo, I don't know, several years ago. And how's consistency working for you? Have any sort of issues with eventual consistency, or?
What do you mean by?
Well, isn't that a sort of a document-oriented database that's more memory?
Oh yeah. Oh, you could shoot your foot off because
programming, of course you could.
It's like the honey badger of database. Like it don't care. Yeah, you could have truly add, you might have 10 documents with, let's just say 10 properties. And then the 11th document, you add an 11th property, and none of the other ones have to care. So if you don't demand something about those things you're adding, like all of a sudden make it mandatory, and now you just blew up the 10 that were in there before, right? So you have to be somewhat smart about how you use it. But I often say if I had to do an application that had to run in SQL, and was really, for whatever performance or other reasons, let's say, I still might prototype the hell out of it in an instant in Mongo, because it runs at the speed of your brain.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't get in the way. I don't have to do bullshit. I don't have to run stupid migrations. I don't have to tell it. Like, once you do that, it's probably like once you learn the power of TDD and BDD, it's hard to go back to not doing it. Same thing with once you realize, wow, this really does work at the speed of my wanting to create and ideate and experiment with building an application. It's literally, it's out of your way. Persistence just happens.
Bob was telling me a year or two ago he was doing TDD with a group, and it was either Go or maybe Rust. I can't remember the language. He was like, it was so fast. It was just no delay at all. There's test code. It was, no matter how big the system got, he said you couldn't wait if you tried. It just kept running.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that's my experience in Rails and Ruby. I could probably write better tests and faster tests. They're fairly fast at the unit level, but when I actually test the acceptance type tests, the automated BDD, Cucumber, they're not blazingly fast.
I'll tell you something we don't talk about enough is test architecture. We'll throw it out and kind of mention it, but oh my God, if you're serious about writing some code, you'd better have a good test architecture.
Absolutely, and that's one of the beauties of it, and that's why, like, groups that I work with now who have dev and QA writing automated tests. I even just said this week and last week. Like, if I were king, first thing I would do is no commits are allowed without an automated acceptance test. It's not somebody else's job to write the freaking acceptance test for me. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it is bullshit.
And guess what? This organization happened to, I said, can you please walk me through from a Jira ticket to your development, show me some commits. I mean, I was poking around looking at some anyway. Show me how you do this, and then this was a dev lead and a QA lead, and then show me your tests and and how you deploy it. Just try to give me a sense of what it's like on the ground. But when they got to the QA part, oh, by the way, we just have these manual tests that we're doing now because earlier on we re-architected the UI and broke all of our automated tests. So we're not running any automated tests right now. I'm like, okay. So another reason for, that the first developer who changed something in UI, run a test, boom, it would have failed.
Right.
Boom, they would have fixed it. And we wouldn't be in this condition where now the QA team has this giant backlog of hundreds of tests to go fix. And that, like, you have something on our nerd thing about it's why some of the smartest people can be so stupid.
That's next up, yeah.
Nobody's trying to come in and do the wrong thing, but it's just that's like mind-boggling to me.
I was
I'll make you guys jealous for a second if you want. So CPPU test, the unit test harness, it's open source. I'm part of creating it. It has about 1,050 tests, 1,009 tests, and they run in 253 milliseconds.
Because it's all almost bare metal C++
It's all,
stuff.
and it's in a big fast Linux box here too, but okay, then you get into Ruby and things slow down a little bit because there's something in the way. But that the thing in the way is really useful. So
it is. It's true, right? Yeah, it's
worth it.
Yeah.
So this
I'll get up. Yeah, I'll get up and walk
these
around.
the extreme programming immersions. We would have we'd teach them in C++, C. I would teach them in C. They'd be taught in C++ or Java. Those were the languages at the time. And the amount of work you get done in C would be a metric I called a cow. C output unit. Oh, and it fits with the nerd theme. Okay,
It does.
C output unit.
Yeah.
And in C++, you'd get about 2 cows, where there'd be 1 cow for the
Oh
C.
my God.
And Java was about 4 cows, right? And so each language you could get more done, because the language is more powerful.
Interesting. Yeah.
This is next one's why some of the smartest people can be so stupid. This is exactly kind of where we ended up with. This isn't deep thought or anything. This guy kind of covers stuff we talk about all the time, but it was good. He did a good job of it. I looked him up. He's I think a post-grad student, 27, 28. Look forward to reading more from him.
So what's his? Is there a short answer? I didn't read the article.
Because we hang out with people who don't challenge us. And basically, I tell you, a big part of this, coming back to this testing discussion, is if you don't have some sort of social or programming system that tells you you're wrong, how the hell are you ever supposed to get better at stuff?
Ah,
That's a good point. Yeah.
have you ever seen the article, The Expert Beginner?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Yeah. So the expert beginner is exactly this problem, which is you did some amazing thing, and you're the only one in your company that knows how to have done that amazing thing. You got the app to work, right? You got the app to work, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. We don't understand at all what you did. You are such an expert, and then you start to feel like you're an expert because you can't see anybody else's work. And
I think what you go through, I was just going to say, you start seeing patterns if you do the same work over and over again, and you need to move to some new field with new patterns.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of consulting, when you see lots of different fields and it's similar problems.
Yeah,
But people think they're unique.
Well, they're special. Embedded people are special.
Yeah.
Because they have to depend on hardware. Now, people doing web apps are special because they have to depend on a database. And guess what? What was the common word there? Depend.
Depend, right?
Okay. And what can you do about that? Something. Right? You're not that special.
Yeah,
I mean, you're special. Don't take me wrong.
I think that the problem domain can be quite special, and even the tools you use can be quite special. But the tools in relationship to the problem domain, that stays the same no matter what the complexity. I think the new patterns I've seen are probably machine learning would be one. There are some new patterns, but most of it's just, here's what I want. I need to get this into some sort of programming system.
Yeah, as we're ideating a future value stream for this company who's working with machine learning and things like that, we're trying to take what's a fairly long process to get something out the door and helping them, trying to urge them to think about all these little opportunities to try to kill the idea, or what's an outcome that you're expecting to see, instead of just, well, that didn't work, try again, that didn't work, try again. Like, okay, I think somewhere in this loop we need to be able to break out of it, right? You need to be able to have some kind of acceptance criteria, some expected outcome. I get it, it can be fuzzy because you're dealing with people and data from medical sensor type data, and I get it, it might not be completely crisp. Like, oh, sorry, you missed it by 1/10 of a second, you're out. But nonetheless, try to help improve the rapid feedback and the ability to, so we're adding a lot of places. It sounds like more gate control per se, but no, it's a lot like what we do for a living in software. You have a gate coming in from the request. Is it feasible? Does it make sense? What kind of outcome would we expect? Is it worth
what problem we're solving?
Yeah, what problem we're solving, and because a lot of people from the clinicians might have some good ideas. Oh, it'd be really great. They've done some awesome work, like with malnutrition and things like that, by predicting someone might be malnourished and then feeding forward and kind of nipping it in the bud, so to speak, right? So there's a lot of things you can do, but there's also a lot of good ideas that might cost a ton and benefit very few.
I don't mean, I'm not, honestly, I swear I'm not trying to do any self-plugging, but this thing I'm working on now, the third book, is about how organizations and machines learn. I'm trying to build a model that works both for machine learning and scales up to orgs. And as part of that, I built this sort of octagon. But the big reveal here for you would be that there's product things you do and there's service things you do. And too often we confuse those two. If you're doing service, somebody's calling you on the phone, you're reacting, you've got tickets you're running down. If you're doing product, you're thinking about the problem. You're thinking about, I've got to fix a thing. It's much more of a what's your problem question, where service is I got to run because the infrastructure is down.
Right. And this actually is an interesting blend. It's taking some of the product that you might create and weaving it into an existing process and service that someone else is providing that then might help them do their job better and ultimately improve the patient outcome, right? So it is an interesting blend, but I submit the things that we do for a living, for product development and value streams and all, lean and all that stuff still applies. You're not special.
You're not special.
Thanks. No.
Back in my day.
I would say it differently. You are special. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually a really good point. That's a much better way to say it, and actually is true. Yeah, you're doing really awesome stuff.
Yes.
But
Yes.
A lot of those points
are not relevant.
All right.
Yes. Yeah, I think a lot of times we'll receive pushback from coders who are like, well, they've never done this medical stuff in your case or whatever. They've never done this type of thing. So how could they teach us TDD or how could they teach us backlog or whatever? It's like, well, no, the front end, the meta stuff stays the same. The bolts and, you may need a 5/16, you may need a 9/16. That changes, right? But going to get the toolbox and which tools to use, that does not change. So scientists discover a mind-blowing link between gut health and age reversal. James, are you ready for your poop transplant?
Do I have to do a poop transplant, or could I just?
I don't
I thought
know.
it was in the stomach. I'm not interested in the.
Oh yeah, they're doing quite a bit of it. It's this gut microbe thing. Is sometimes you can take a pill with little bugs to live in your stomach, but sometimes they actually put a GI tube down and do a fecal transplant. They're finding that the stuff that lives in your stomach and intestines have this tremendous impact on all these sorts of things that they didn't know before. And they're saying that it may actually lead to age reversal.
Now, if they could tie that to like eating Mexican food or something.
Yeah, that doesn't make me feel too young. And it does get rid of the young people in my house after the Mexican food. I can't keep them around. But yeah, I don't know. This is one of these stories that just keeps coming back again and again, this gut microbe thing. I have no idea.
Well, I have not done a lot of reading on gut microbes.
There's a famous, I can't think of his name, but there's a famous doctor who uses this quite often when it's like the, last resort people have, they think it's, what are some of the gut problems? The celiac disease, all kinds of things like that. Yeah. The name will come to me. But yeah, there's, they often call the gut your second brain.
Yes. No shit. But there's more back.
I don't think you can say no shit to that, Daniel.
Dang it, you caught me.
Just saying,
That's its own problem, actually. Yeah. But yeah, you have more external creatures living inside you than you do have human cells. So it stands to reason that they need to sort of start figuring out what's living in there and what they're up to.
Get out, invaders. Not the good ones.
So this next story, colliding photons made better, but are the photons real? So they made light bounce into itself. Boom! Hey, we got matter and antimatter. But the problem is figuring out exactly what bounced into what. So it looks like they did an experiment. They got results that they expected, but they were unable to confirm that the experiment ran the way they thought it would. And so they're just kind of stuck going, well, it looks like runs on my machine. Yeah.
Show the picture of your machine there. That's
that's cool.
Detector is kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I did have the pleasure of climbing around in one of those once while it was off.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah, I remember back in the 80s going to Princeton and seeing their cyclotron or some, I want to say Megatron, but it was a big toroidal thing that had insane data acquisition compared to that. I thought we were doing pretty good with some of the cruise missile engine inlet testing. We had like a 50,000 hertz data sampling system back in the 80s, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And I just remember the numbers that they told us about, because everything happens so fast. So you've got to have an explosion of data acquisition, literally, because the explosion is nanoseconds or whatever it is.
Have you guys seen the light in slow motion video on YouTube? That's freaking incredible. Okay, so of course you can't take a picture.
How can you see it?
Yeah, so you can't take a picture of light because it's instantaneous. So what they did was they snapshotted the light, and then they statistically modeled what a particular photon would look like. So it is a picture of a packet of light going through a scene, that Coke bottle, different things. It's freaking awesome. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Quantum dots. This is a good overview of quantum dots. They're probably coming to a TV near you. This is cool stuff. You guys, have you heard of quantum dots?
I've never eaten one.
Yeah, it's better for ice cream, I think. Yeah, you put it on your ice cream. It's good stuff.
I think I've heard those words put together before. I mean, I've heard each word independently. I think I've heard them together. But tell us, Dan. Tell us, Podna.
They're nanometer it's easy for me to say, nanometer size specks of semiconductor matter. It's freaking awesome. So there's a TV type called a QED, I think, a quantum dot QDE. That's the new stuff, it's the expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what it's made of. So this is a review of the last 30 years. It's cool if you're interested in new TV technologies, colloidal quantum dots. What interested me about this was I went to click on the underlying study on Science Magazine, and hell, if I could get to the damn thing. It's paywalled, and I just kind of gave up.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about TV technology is you go and buy the TV that's as expensive as you're willing to spend, and then you get the next year you go, what? How can they sell that for only $500 now? It's like that's just not. Okay.
That's part of the wonderful economic model of the folks willing to fund that newborn technology.
So there's
this big wall and put up a big TV, and now it's $500. Come on.
Right, and it helps fund the reduction in costs. It's
amazing.
It is. So yeah, I'm not that person that's going out.
It doesn't piss you off any less, though.
I don't look. You just can't look. The rule is you don't look. You buy it, you don't look. You give it a year.
After you sold your Amazon stock or your Apple stock, you can't look back.
Yeah. Right.
So the Criterion Collection, which is a company, I think is about 30 or 40 years old, they take classic movies and make like these perfect copies. They're going to start making these 4K HDR movies now. The first are coming out next month. I think Citizen Kane will be one of the first ones they do.
And they're doing it from the films?
Yeah. They keep the film. They were worried about the films losing, degrading over time, and so what they've been doing is they've got like a best of movies overall, and then you buy it for like $30-$40. But it comes with a booklet and whatever they can find. It's quality stuff. If you like movies, I love the Criterion Collection. They do some cool stuff.
Criterion Collection.
Oh yeah, good stuff. So next one is JPL's plan for the next Mars helicopter, and this is it's an octocopter. Have you guys been following the Mars helicopter flying around, huh?
I haven't been.
Oh, dang. Well, it went very well.
It's like I keep doing other stuff and all those cool things that you have all the time to go read about. And I mean no disrespect.
No, that's funny, because we have to say, back in my day, at least 4 times, and James at one point has to go, must be nice having all that time.
And I mean no disrespect.
Oh, no, I
totally am in awe of your...
Melissa, we watch TV.
Ever see you?
When my wife gets home in the evening, we turn the TV on. She does her work because she brings it home, and I do this. I just read lots of stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, so this is really cool. The Mars helicopter is cool, and the next version is going to be even wilder. We've got a picture of that.
My grandson's, I've got a little cheap $80 drone. It's a lot of fun to fly. It's really durable. and my grandsons really love to. They don't fly it. They love to have me fly it and then crash it into trees and stuff. It's so much fun for them.
I'm envious. I've wanted a drone for some time. I haven't had one.
You can $100. You can have one. Tim Ottinger pointed me at this one. He had one, and he had a really nice one, and he had a cheap one for learning. It's like, here, you should probably buy one of those. It's only $75.
Right.
And then you put a few batteries and some spare parts in. You spend $110 or something.
Yeah, and you can use your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, you can. It's got a little camera on it, so you can take pictures. It's pretty awesome.
You can't fly them in any kind of strong wind.
Oh yeah, the wind definitely wins. And if you do kind of get a heavy hand on the up, the accelerator, you can lose the drone because it'll go, and then the wind will come by and blow it.
Oh dang!
So you gotta tone back that button there.
Yeah, as a pilot, I had to learn early on that there's just way too many cool toys that I would love to play with that I'm not going to be able to play. It's just, I would love to fly a gyrocopter, for instance. That would be a hoot.
Yeah, they're kind of funny things.
You can't stall it. You can't stall them because the wing is a rotating wing, so it's impossible to stall a gyrocopter.
I mean, it'll just land itself if something goes wrong, right?
You land itself, and they say that normally you pull back instead of pushing forward. In a plane, you would push forward if you're in trouble because you want more airspeed, but in a gyrocopter, you pull back and just use the rotors to brake where you are. What the hell was that? Oh, there we are. Okay.
Have you ever gone skydiving?
No, I always wanted to do that too.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm sorry about the tangent, but you made me think of it. It's not my fault.
No.
So we didn't mean to go either, but my son's father-in-law or grandfather-in-law, 80th birthday, he was doing a charity jump, and so we all went to Wisconsin to watch, and we all got roped into going. But I was willing, it was like, wow, okay, I'll do it. The most amazing thing is, well, we're going down. You've got somebody piggybacked on you, and for 5,000 feet, you're falling straight down, hoping that you won't hit the ground, believing that the guy back there wants to live too.
Correct.
And then once you open up the chute, he's letting me control it by pulling down on the handles. And I have this crazy question to say, is it possible to stall this? And he goes, oh yeah, that's what we're going to do next. It's like, no, it was really just a rhetorical question. I didn't really want to do it. Just pull now. And so you yank down as hard as you can. And then the whole thing just stops for about 5 seconds. Total silence. And then the fact that you are falling, it starts to go again. Forward. It was, I highly recommend
That's cool.
going skydiving.
My
ratio of takeoffs to landings is almost 1, but it will never be 1 again.
When I got my private license, I found an aerobatics instructor out in Santa Paula, California. Went out there, and you would ask him questions like, well, what happened if we turned the plane upside down? And whatever you could come up with, he's like, okay, let's go do that. And it was just, it amazed me. He was like, wow.
Got to be careful with questions you ask, huh?
I always wanted to take aerobatic lessons. I was good in the simulators.
Yeah, interesting. When you're inverted, you have to kind of push forward because what you feel is -1G is less than what it actually is. So you have to kind of fly kind of like this inverted. So
yeah, depending on how much thrust you have.
Yeah, inverted spins not so fun because you have the -G thing, and it's
but the negative G's are much worse.
Yes,
they're much harder to handle. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the things he told me was we're going to go through a lot of G's, 3 to 4 positive, and maybe 5 positive, and like -1 or 2. He said we really don't know if that's going to shorten your life or not. I'm like,
well,
yay.
I worked with an Air Force general and medical doctor, James Winery, one of the greatest guys I ever worked with. Super, super awesome. And so we were doing, basically, this was at the Naval Air Development Center, 50-foot arm centrifuge. I put many pilots through flat spin training for F-14, F-18, things like that. And they did tons of research about G-induced loss of consciousness, G-lock.
G-lock.
Just for that, is it ethical that we put random people in there to do tests? Or are we increasing their chance of, dying or something like that? So
stroke or whatever it might be.
Yeah, or mostly we were looking for arrhythmias, and so they had EKGs, everything wired up. So we had tons of data, and I did a lot of the analysis, and I worked with them, and I would like walk through broken glass for this guy. What a great leader, just what a motivator for a young engineer. Yeah, I must have been early 30s, maybe 30, 31, something like that. And he actually let me present the paper at the American Medical Association.
Oh, wow.
Down in New Orleans. And it was funny. He's like, don't worry, I'm going to be sitting right in front. If anybody asks a question, just look down. And, you don't need to make anything up. And it was pretty hilarious. And it probably was one of my first public talks.
Oh. So what was the result? You got to tell us.
The result was powerful. That literally the arrhythmia, the tachycardia, there was no increase of likelihood of it causing heart problems when you pass out due to heavy G's. Yeah, and it was pretty fun. There was one question. Somebody asked something, and I looked down at him. He's just holding up, 2 was the answer.
The answer? Oh, I thought about this for some time. It's 2.
Yeah. And then when they put the lights up for questions, I was like, oh my God, the place was packed, standing room only. I'm glad I didn't see any of that when I started. But yeah, so there's a little funny story, maybe answering your question.
Yeah, sounds like it does. One of the first things you learn in an airplane, there are 2 ways it flies: straight and level, and then a spin. These are the 2 dynamics of planes. So the first thing you learn in aerobatics is how to get out of spins, because if you do that, then whatever else happens to the plane, you're just the worst is going to happen. You're going to be in a spin.
Yeah, and spin, turn it into a spiral dive, and then you pull out of it. And that's what we taught. The odd thing is, I'm sure the spins you've done, and like I did, you feel like you're pretty much nose down.
Yeah.
And the F-14 literally was a maple leaf, flat spin. I mean,
oh my God.
You just saw the horizon bouncing slightly. It was 90 degrees angle of attack, 10,000 feet per minute descent.
Now, I think somebody was telling me that some of the military planes actually have PAIR is the acronym: Power, Aileron, Rudder, Elevator, for getting out of a spin. But some said that some planes, I think the flat spin military planes, actually you do it the opposite way, whatever you do in a normal plane, because it's just made differently.
Well, so yeah, with the F-14, the engines are so far apart, so they had tons of yaw, and the elevons basically are like the size of an A4 wing, right? So you had these big, massive control surfaces in the back. So I literally can still go through the process. Roll SAS off. Basically, hard. You're really just trying to break that angle of attack.
Yes.
So you're basically, full rudder in,
yes,
shoving the stick, just waiting. And that's why on Top Gun, they talked about the hard deck at 10,000 feet. Because if you hit 10,000 feet above ground level and you are not out yet, you can't even do this because you're -6 G's, eyeballs out.
Yeah.
So you're 100, in other words, 180 degrees per second. You are flying, you are a ball on the end of a 23-foot arm.
Wow.
And -6 G. So we also taught them, if your harness isn't locked, your face is mashed. You cannot hold yourself up at -6 G's. Eyeballs out. And they would come back bloodshot.
I don't know if they do this in fighter jets, but in aerobatic planes, you don't keep any sort of paperwork around. No loose gear, because that's going to be not so fun having it hit you.
Yeah, it'll go all over. Sure, same thing. Yeah, they have things strapped to their knees. Yeah, there's.
So it's talking about the spin being a stable part of flying. It used to be that biplanes, before they had gyroscopes, if they knew there was 1,000 feet underneath the clouds, they would spin down through the clouds and then do the recovery and pull out at the bottom, because they knew they could fly in a. If you know you're in a spin, you know what you're doing, as opposed to not knowing.
Well, you know it's going down, huh? Okay.
Yeah, you're going down there. It is quite a view. You're going down in a hurry.
So in these birds, World War II, P-38, my dad flew these. They had compressibility. Before people knew what the speed of sound and how to deal with that, these had compressibility problems. And they lost a lot of pilots because when the plane went into that state, their instincts had them do the wrong thing.
Correct.
And then they crashed. But then once they finally had somebody survive one, and say, how they did it different. Then they put on air brakes and some other stuff to help prevent, losing those pilots and planes that way.
Yeah, same thing with like some of the dive bombers. The same problems would happen as they pull up. The G would make them pass out. So then some of them started creating auto recovery. I think Stukas might even had auto. But some of our planes, in other words, if you ain't pulling back, I'm pulling back.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna make the plane save itself because if you pass out, because you're trying to pull out of a high speed dive,
Yeah.
for like.
Yeah, we actually went. I went through negative G lock. That's the red out, the regular G out, so gray out. It is a weird feeling coming back, looking at the plane, like, hey, I'm flying a plane now. This is fun. Well, yeah, you don't get the panic right away. It's like, hey, this is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
You also go into dream state. That was the other thing that Dr. Wintery taught me is a lot of people, they wake up because they're all kind of like, oh, and where am I? What happened? And then they'll report dreaming.
Oh, wow.
And it's a lot like death. They'll also report it's a very similar, like you just start dreaming and you float away. You're just, so it's a phenomenal kind of a situation to go under.
I would rather fly airplanes than eat. I remember coming out of Cleveland, Ohio one time. I was renting a 172, brand new, and I was flying back to Lynchburg, Virginia. And I was finishing with a client. I drove to the airport. I get in the plane. It was just so cool. And I take off. And as I took off, I looked down, and I saw a highway just full of brake lights. As far as the eye could see, there's thousands of people stuck in traffic. And at that point, the tower called and said, clear direct Lynchburg. I'm like, fucking hey, man. It's like king of the hill. Yeah, it was a good feeling.
As the crow flies.
Yeah, good feeling. So this next story is new battery chemistry tweak could double EV range. I don't like doing electric battery stories because they're mostly bullshit, but this has got some heavy hitters, including the guy who invented the lithium-ion battery and got the Nobel for it. So they're saying, hey, we might be able to double your EV range.
That would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
As I just bought a new car with 670 horsepower.
Ooh, what'd you get?
A new used, because the last car I bought was 21 years ago, so it's not like I fritter away money on cars. And it had 240,000 miles on it, and it's starting to make rod noise. I'm gonna part out the old one, sell the good stuff off of it. So that was a twin turbo as well.
Ooh.
This is a Audi S8.
Nice point.
So
Nice.
it's crazy. It drives like a smaller car. And speaking of losing blood, when you do launch control, you feel the blood drain out of your head. It's like, oh my God, fast.
Oh, wow.
I thought my twin turbo 400 wheel horse was fast. This thing is stupid fast, and you could probably be holding a glass of wine while you do it.
You're not recommending that, I don't think.
No, but I'm just saying if you're a passenger.
Yeah, always drink before you drive, guys. You don't want to. You can't hold the glass to say it's too. I'm joking. Just joking.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like an amazing feats of engineering in that thing. I was driving it back from DC on Tuesday, and it peaked at like 26.8 miles to the gallon. So it shuts down 4 of the cylinders because it has active engine mounts. But that costs like $2,000 a pop if you have to replace them. It's got air suspension, and they'll pump through the Bose system. They will pump noise canceling.
It's got the Bose leveling system.
They'll pump in noise canceling for the fact that they're running 4 out of 8 cylinders, so it's probably slightly less perfect or something. So yeah, it's like the engineers were. Like, all right, take the top off, whatever you're thinking, and just go for like this stupid ass 6 Sigma improvements. I'm sure. It's kind of hilarious.
I've always been a used car, buy it, beat the heck out of it guy. But the new stuff is really, really tempting. It's just the tech has changed so much in the last 20 years. It's amazing.
Yeah, this is a 6-year-old car, but upgrading from my 2000. 2015 is pretty new. So. Yeah.
I bought a 2001 a few years ago. I said, hey, I'm looking for a new car. And a friend of ours is a mechanic, and he actually had a little old lady. No shit, a little old lady that never drove her car. It was, I guess, 15 years old. Only had like 15,000 miles on it. Still smelled like a new car. I'm like, how much do you want for it? He's like, $2,000. I'm like, I'll be there in an hour. Yeah, we're done.
Yeah. You kidding me? Wow.
Still happy with that. So this last article we have, and we're going to do a bit of code if we have time, is tortured phrases give away fabricated research papers. Basically, what's been happening, and it's been happening mostly in China, surprise, surprise, is people are going through and writing programs to rewrite other research papers, and then they submit them to journals so they can get publication credits. And and they figured it out because you can see that they've swapped out terms. Like instead of big data, they use colossal information.
Mm.
Yeah, instead of artificial intelligence, counterfeit consciousness. My favorite, instead of random value, irregular esteem.
It's like some of the little manuals you get with some of your electronics that came from China.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're in the dictionary, some of those words actually translated.
Yeah,
But,
we're trying.
you know,
I was at a client. We're trying to put this furniture together and had all these little pictures of people and like what the like Rob. The last time I saw this was in the Marines and we had to pay extra for that. he took down the room. They all lost it at that point. Cloud computing is haze figuring. Yeah.
Figuring.
Yeah.
Well, is anybody being fooled by this that isn't Chinese?
Well, see, this is academia's become this big publishing kind of gimmick thing where it's all about publishing, no matter whether it's really a reputable place or not. It's yes, to answer your question, yes, for some time. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is, if it's okay with you guys, we'll do a quick walkthrough of this script James and I were talking about last week. There we are. So for some background, both James and I do a regular kind of podcasting and training. And because of that, we need to upload video. We need to process video. It's got to be put out on the web. And James was telling me about, he actually has a script that works with Vimeo. And I was like, well, I've been doing this manually, but I should script up some stuff to see how it works. And this is all on GitHub if you're interested. So this is a bash script. When I started, I gave myself a budget of about 30 lines of bash code. I do code budgeting to prevent me from just kind of going crazy, because with bash, you don't want to write a lot of code. Small scripts is good. If you're going past a small script, go to some other compiled language. So basically, I just get the start time. I get the file that the guy wants. This is the default variable. You don't get one on the command line. You can just get defaults, which is kind of cool. This little piece right here gets the run length of a audio or video file, which is also freaking awesome. Basically, I'm calling a subshell with FFmpeg, which the more I play with FFmpeg, the more I like it.
It's the ultimate Swiss Army knife for audio video.
I can get artist, I can get duration, I can convert from MP4 to MP3. It does. I'm using it here lower. So next, I just make sure the file exists. If it doesn't, I bail out, which I should, and I make a directory. I don't care if it's already made or not. It's processing temp directory, and I pulled my variables out to magic. I've got there in case I need to screw around with it. Start file size in megabytes. I just started kind of gold plating this because I got it to work and I'm like, well, how long does it take? Well, how big was the file? And okay, fine. I get more stuff I can go tweaking around in.
That's right, yeah.
Can you test drive it?
Yeah, I can't right now. I don't know.
Because this is, is there a test framework for bash scripts? I don't know.
Yes, there is.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Yep. I've used it a couple of times. And cool, Dan. Is there more to show? Or
yeah, just a couple more commands. Basically, just make a temp directory. I put the file in there. Okay, so here is the guts. Actually, it's just really 3 lines of code, pretty much.
What is nice?
Nice tells bash to run this as far in the background as possible, so anything else can preempt it.
Oh. Okay.
So nice minus 20, and this has a first filter. Make sure it's an MP4. Then I normalize the whole thing. Oh yeah, here. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. This is the first one. So I'm doing a audio filter -AF, and then I actually sent it two filters. I did this AFF-TDN, which is a sort of an artificial neural network that finds the voices we're using. And then I do a high pass, low pass, which takes out a lot of the stuff that is not part of the human voice. So FFmpeg will let you put two voices at the same, two filters at the same time while it's processing, that's cool.
Yeah. Less file I/O.
And I assigned everything to temp file. So I've got input A, I make it temp 1, and I got temp 1, temp 2, temp 2, temp 3, and this is just sort of an old functional sort of.
You could change the number 3 to be more descriptive about. What the step is actually doing.
Oh, yeah, I could. Yes, and that's a great idea. Yes. Then I could have it speak.
He's on step 3, John.
And then I do. Here, this is a Python program you can get called FFmpeg normalize.
So that would be temp normalized.
I think
I don't know.
But see, part of the problem here is that I cannot inspect that to see if it's actually normalized or not. If I name a variable, I can look at the variable. But hell, if I can figure out whether or not if it's still got audio, I guess it's okay. There's no test case to your point.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to listen to it, but it's hard to know if it worked. I guess.
It's magic.
I started running that because somebody was telling me all my videos are different volumes.
You're basically doing transformations, right? You've got some kind of a pipeline that you're pushing it through, and what state is it in after each pipeline does its thing?
Yes, and that's like I said, that's an old functional hack, because if you do this the right way, actually the whole thing could just come out to be one big pipe, which is the same thing if you do a pure function. It all kind of collapses into one big pipe. But you tease it apart into pieces because the old Mark I noggin here needs a little help to figure out if you're doing the right thing or not.
Yep.
So then
you're experimenting. Okay. Yeah.
Well, you're not experimenting as much as you're trying to say, I don't know.
I'll do similar kind of things with these processes because there's intermediate steps where you can actually check to see how that thing works.
Yes.
And sometimes there's more than one output.
Yes.
Like, for instance, a make file produces the everything's okay standard out, and it also produces here's all the errors. Right?
Yeah.
So there's two outputs there, and it's like, okay, now what do I do? Because I really just wanted one, and I could filter that output.
It's interesting that how much functional programming and scripting, because it's like that, ends up being some sort of data flow diagram. You got stuff coming in, I'm doing this stuff, it kind of goes out in little patterns. Picked up
The cool thing about Linux is,
Pipes.
in Bash and things like that, it's like all those filters are everywhere, right?
I learned FFmpeg and I can use it for the next 20 years. It's going to be the same thing. Whereas if I had downloaded a Windows program or Mac program, next year the guy's got a new version, wants to give me to give him $20, and it's just not a good place to be.
Yeah.
Last line, I could take the video file, I make a audio file, which this just amazes me. You just say, hey, FFmpeg, I just want you to interpolate this coming in, that going out, you figure it out, I don't care. And it's like, okay. It's like, yes.
So just the MP3 is enough to trigger it to know what to do.
And whatever defaults it's using is fine. I get the feeling, and in fact, I saw online that a lot of commercial products are actually using the FFmpeg library under the hood. So its defaults are the defaults of a lot of the industry.
If you want to hurt your brain, you go to FFmpeg -help.
Oh my God, yeah, I did that. It's like, 7 screens of Christ, like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Wow.
okay, just read that, incorporate it, integrate, and then do the right thing. It's like, no, I hope somebody solved the same problem I was trying to do with this thing. There's no way I could figure it out.
And there's a manual. There's a whole manual page. If you go online, there's this nest of pages that's wow. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
what
bet
I'm
there's
looking
books on the topic.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, the quick article on just tell me how to do the basics that like 99% of the people need to do.
And
thank you for all
and
the
that's
The thing is that
the
you're
false
special
matter.
though, John. everything you need to do will be special.
Pretty sure not.
No, well, for me, I'm using Camtasia, and I don't know how to make all the audio come out the same volume because I use different microphones, and so somebody says, "Oh, you can use FFmpeg." It's like, okay, great. 4 articles later, somebody did do this special thing I wanted, and there is a formula for it. And Daniel, you also discovered probably the same article.
Google is my friend. Yes, I love you, Google.
You're doing that normalized.
I was like, hey, he said, this one guy, I took video next to a waterfall, and I ran this code, got the voices, pulled them out pretty good. I'm like, frickin' A. So I tried his code. It was actually too good. It made it sound a little robotic, so I had to back off. But it was like, hey, just cut and paste.
Well, that was for a consistent din of background noise, right?
And white noise as well.
Yeah.
Lastly,
regarding the script, Dan, and then we talked about test driving it. Something that I do in the scripts is I make functions. So instead of just top to bottom, you can make functions, and then the bottom of the file is where you invoke the script, but you can break all the little pieces down like that, and then those can all be tested with the with Bash.
You're exactly right.
And so that's.
So we can over-engineer this.
Yeah, I know. Hello, my name is Daniel, and I am an over-engineer.
Well, unit testing came up, and then I don't know. If collecting ideas and functions with a name is like over-engineering, I'm sorry.
James, to my earlier point, I
think it's much better. It's much easier just to have a 1,000-line script. Just saying.
Yeah.
And if I had now I'm not going to write 1,000 lines in Bash, because if I did, I would have to go to functions and use a test suite, as you mentioned. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You're right. I had a budget because I do this, and if I don't have a budget, then I can't. I keep doing it.
I am no Bash expert. It's just I've kind of discovered for me, I can do better if I start to collect those things into little chunks.
I have to walk away. Yes, you're correct. These are all great. I'm not, trying to dismiss any of this at all. These are all great ideas. I have to force myself to. I know myself. I will end up writing a Bash engine to convert everything to everything. It'll be Dan Peg, and it's I don't want to do that.
No, yeah.
That
pragmatic.
I line 64.
Yes, that was where I'm going. So
okay.
I delete all my temp files because I don't need them, don't care about them. I remove the normalized file, and then I go down here and I go, hey, I got to upload this stuff to G Drive. So I got a G Drive upload function that sends it out, and this big thing over here is actually the folder I want to send it to in G Drive, and one's an audio folder and one's a video folder.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's nothing to do. It processes everything, splits it into 2 pieces, sends it all to G Drive. And the big thing here is by keeping sort of the code base for just the 3 to 5 lines, really, if it breaks, I can just go in and look at the code base and know. If it were 1,000 lines, that would be undoable. It would be gnarly. Yep. And then I do this bunch of echoing down where I do a report. I thought about putting a dancing clown in, but it was just kind of tough with. Maybe if I went to ANSI graphics, I could actually put the clown in. But
come on, you should have a dancing clown.
Every program should have a dancing clown, right? Gee.
Well, I'm not sure about every. But.
It's like flaming text back in the 90s when you had the first web pages came out. Everybody had flaming text. And Blink. Who can forget Blink?
Yeah.
Hey, so I got distracted for a second. You had that one file name that was really interesting. Is that like your Google Drive key or something?
Yes. So there's a G Drive piece of Python you can download. You run it. It gives you a link. You go to G Drive. G Drive validates it. Says, okay, I know that you're okay to use G Drive. And then you just say, hey, G Drive, upload this thing here. And I want you to overwrite it if it's already there. And then here's the folder. There's this huge thing here. So on G Drive, it's podcast-audio. But here it's 1AMRP. Yeah. So.
Yeah, cool.
Are you sure that doesn't give everybody, isn't that your SSH keys for the universe?
It's not. It's very nice to not make it. I've been doing code demos before where I'm like, oh shit, I just actually gave everybody my key. But no, this isn't that way. No.
Yeah, Yeah, careful, don't show the secrets.yaml file.
Secret side, yeah. Yeah, somebody did a GitHub search a year or two ago for like secrets.yaml or whatever. They found all these files with all these passwords and such.
Yeah, I'm sure, and it's probably just a bunch of people doing, somebody's tutorial.
I guess
So Dan, that's a cool script. Did
Yeah.
you used to do those steps manually?
Yeah, basically, what happened was all I did before was just convert from MP3 to MP4, or the other way, split it and upload it, just drag and drop. But then you told me last week about normalizing the audio. I'm like, well, okay, that's actually some interesting functionality, and that makes it 2 or 3 lines of stuff instead of just one. So okay, it's time to do a little automation. That's how I ended up with 100-line bash.
Right.
I need 3 lines of code. That's why I have 100 lines now.
Yeah, cool.
Well, that's because you documented it as well.
Yes.
And you have feedback to the user. So, it's got the UI, it's got persistence layer, and does a nice job that instead of you doing it manually, now if something goes wrong, you fix the process, not the human. Yeah.
Well, your process is documented in an executable specification.
Yeah. So your kids can do it after, you're gone.
Yeah. And the old man finally falls off the roof for the last time.
Yeah. Yeah. How's your back doing?
Week 4 of wearing this thing. I got probably another 4 weeks or so to go. It's just annoying as hell. It's not as painful as it. That first day, wow, that was really painful.
What'd you get fixed?
I was up seeing the meteor shower at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll just tell you what I told him in the emergency room. Okay, I drank a bunch of vodka. I climbed on the roof and I fell off. All right, that's what happened. Just get it out of your system now. Everybody can have fun with it. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
I don't believe that story.
The Perseids is famous.
I can. I don't have a problem with dry. I mean, a lot of things I do not do. I'm not tempted by, but meteor showers. Nobody ever told me you can't drink and look at meteor showers.
Well, you have to, I think.
Well, insert the on the roof part.
Yeah, the on the roof. Yeah,
it's fine. You can drink and look at meteor showers.
I told my wife this morning. She said, "You better not get on the roof again next time you drink." I said, "Well, what I'm going to do is start with like little ladders, and jump off like a little ladder, so that's okay. And then like move up to a bigger ladder. At some point, I can be roof side.
Like boiling a frog.
Yeah, if you could teach yourself, I think you could teach yourself. It's the agile way. Teach yourself to fly this way.
I think there is a footnote on the bottom of watching the Perseids that says, "Don't do it drunk on your roof."
Yeah,
but that's only if you can see it. That's like
it depends on the pitch of the roof.
Yeah. Well, it was pretty steep there. The end was pretty steep. I know. I was about 8 feet. It's pretty good pitch. I don't know the exact number, but it's a metal roof, very nice roof. I had gotten the little step ladder. That didn't reach. I'd forgotten that was the wrong one. So then I found cinder blocks and put underneath the legs.
No.
Yeah, that also did not reach. So I was undaunted at this point. I had to get on the roof. So I took the little ladder back. I went and got the giant ladder, which I should have got to begin with. And I put it on the cinder blocks, which was a really bad idea.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
And then coming back down, I put my foot on the ladder and wiggled a little bit. And I'm like, oh, cool. It wiggles some until you put weight on it, and then it will stabilize. Because it will if it's on a flat piece of ground, but if it's just on the cinder blocks.
Sometimes the cinder blocks might roll.
That's an OSHA violation, not to mention that's a dumbass violation.
That's a dumbass. Yeah, when you're going to be a dumbass, be a dumbass. Don't do it halfway, okay?
Dan probably lives in an area where there's no OSHA inspector nearby.
No. The kids asked my wife, like, didn't you hear him come off the roof? She's like, no, I was sleeping. I'm okay. It's good. Thanks. So, guys, let me do this last thing here. Now. 1 second. There you go. You have wasted yet another hour of your precious time hanging out with us nerds on Nerd Roundup. We're really glad to have you. I'm Daniel Markham, and we will see you on the internet.